got 50 people to do that. People who really make money, they don't do the mundane crap. It's like, get somebody else to do that. They only think about the important stuff.
Well, I don't make enough money to have someone do my laundry.
I know, but the problem is your way you think. You think you have a priority list, and the first priority is do the laundry, wash the dishes, which I do a lot of that, by the way. Yes, sweep the floor. You're not like, let's just forget about that crap and figure out something that actually works. All right, you tell me when. I don't know if I'm on. We're not turned.
You are.
Am I still on?
Yeah, you guys are just still on.
That's not running, is it?
It's running.
It's running? Mm-hmm. Well, then you got to do action. So ready? Here we go.
Action.
Okay, we're back with rig roast from Manson reamers. This is going to be part 3. The battery went dead. Vicki had to change it. Okay, so first thing I want to show you is this. We were just digging through some stuff, and this is an old Manson reamer catalog, way back January 2016. And there's we were just talking about this. Let's talk about this reamer holder. Ray, you hold that for me so I can dig in here too. So I actually have 3 of these, 2 brand new, only because I'm obsessive compulsive. This is the original one that I ever got, literally from Dave Manson. And I've been using that forever. And we were just talking, and yes, there's really fancy ones with all kind of settings and everything on them. But I have been using this forever, and I really like it. And you told me you're actually selling dozens of those a month?
Yeah, we still sell dozens of these a month.
I mean, that's amazing.
And it is a fairly simple design. Something Dave came up with. Probably the one that makes it maybe a little more unique than a lot of the other ones. The nose part of this is fairly light, so it's fairly responsive. You don't have all the inertia or momentum or whatever the physics is that's keeping your reamer from floating if it has to. And so that's probably the secret sauce for this one. But otherwise, it's just doing what all the other ones do. If there was some small misalignment or some reason that this thing had to move a little bit, that's what it's there for.
Right.
Yeah.
And I will say, at least when I'm doing it, so I always have my right hand on the tailstock, and I have my left hand always. I put it right here between the.
I do the same thing.
You do the same thing? I leave my finger right there, and so I can feel every single thing, whatever's going on. I can literally feel it as it's cutting. Yeah. So I like it. Yeah. And so here it is. I just found it in the catalog. I'm sure it's not the same price nowadays, but there it is. So if you guys want to buy one of them, I like it. I like it a lot. All right, now we were going to talk about freebore. And so we've dug out some prints too, some newer prints. So let's talk about freebore again. Show them on here, because this will be some people in this video won't have watched part 1 and 2. Show them where it is on the reamer, and then show them where it is on the print.
So again, kind of going back to what we just real briefly. You've got your body, that's this section here, your shoulder, your neck, what we call the transition.
And I never knew
some people will call that the chamfer. Technically it's not really a chamfer.
I never knew that you called that the transition.
For lack of a better word.
Okay.
Your freebore section, your lead, and there's your pilot. So on your reamer, you got your body right here, your shoulder right here, your neck, this section right here, transition. Right in here is your freebore. So this section, and of course this reamer isn't the same as this print, and then when you get out at the end of the freebore, because this is such a gentle angle change right there, often it's very difficult to see where it is on the reamer, but if this were the reamer, it would be about right in this area here. And then it would begin the taper, the 1.5 degree taper down to the below bore diameter.
Yes. So the way that I want to tell these guys how that I do this, because I do not actually do math and calculate any of this. And Ray knows this because we send it to him all the time. Maybe we'll dig in here and show you. What we do is we make dummy rounds. And you look in here, come over here and show them, Vicki. So we make dummy rounds with the exact brass that we're going to use, the exact bullets we're going to use. And then I seat the bullet in the case to the exact point that I want. And let me have that pencil for a second. My deal is always that I do not want the base of the bullet to go below the shoulder neck junction. I always want the actual, and I wouldn't say that, where the boat tail, I don't want the boat tail line to cross below the shoulder neck junction. If the actual little bit of the base is below it, that is fine. But what I do is I make up dummy rounds exactly the way I want them with specific components. And then I send them to Ray. And it's funny because it's weird that he's standing here right now because many of, look at the stack of reamer prints, show them reamer prints, Vicki, have his name on them. And so it's kind of a little weird, strange actually, because you know your name and stuff is right on there, and now here you are. But you know we had never met before. So, anyways, I do this, and generally when I do it, I send him like 2 dummies with the bullets in them. I'll send him 2 pieces of brass. I should back up right there. And this is also probably being obsessive compulsive, but I'll go through like 100 bullets and find the average bullet. And I'll go through like 100 pieces of brass and find the average brass. And then what I do is I made my dummies, and out of these ones that I found the average, I'll send him 2 dummies, 2 pieces of brass, and 2 bullets is usually what I send you.
That sounds right.
Right? That's about what I normally send. And then what I always say is, please make me a reamer that matches my dummies as close as possible and still allow it to function, I think is what I usually say. Something, because you realize you can get it, and you should probably expand on this, you could make it so perfect that it won't fit.
Yeah, you wouldn't want that. You always need a certain amount of clearance between your chamber and the cartridge. Otherwise it's just going to get stuck in there.
And see, that's something that I don't know, because like right now I'm going to ask him that amount of clearance. So I send you these dummies and I say, make it just like this, but make it work. Tell me what make it work. How much clearance is that? Just average.
It varies. It varies. A lot of times it'll vary based on the cartridge diameter. So the bigger it gets, the more clearance I'm going to give it.
Okay.
So think of it proportionally.
Okay.
You know, if this was a 223,
yes,
I'd probably keep this number back here, maybe 2 thou over your cartridge.
So of the diameter. So the actual reamer will be 2 thousandths larger than the diameter.
Right.
At the base.
Right. And here, I don't know, I don't remember, but I'm just guessing you're probably in the neighborhood of 3 over.
Okay.
It might be a little more than that. I don't know without doing some measuring. Up here at the shoulder, again, it's going to be proportional, but probably 3 to 5 at the shoulder.
And that's radius again? Or that's for datum line? Datum line.
Total.
Okay.
Total difference.
So wait, I want to be clear on that. So that the cartridge will blow forward 3 thou?
No. Diameter. We're talking about diameter.
Oh, diameter, okay.
Okay, so diameter.
Okay.
Here, you control where that is when you're chambering it.
Right.
There's no...
right. Headspace, right.
If this were a belted cartridge, right, you'd bring it into the belt depth and you're done.
Yes.
You don't care where the shoulder... I mean, you care, but it's set for you.
Oh, but wait.
On a reamer like this,
yes,
right, your headspace gauge and how far you run this into the chamber determines how deep your chamber is.
Yes.
Right? And so ideally you're going to get it, pretty close to your headspace go gauge.
Okay, so wait, because I want to be clear for myself even on this. So I guess we should back up also and say, a lot of times when I chamber, I will use the actual brass, whatever I sent you. Mm-hmm. And usually your headspace gauge is plus or minus 1, or even closer than that, to the actual brass. But what I'm trying to say here is say I used the headspace gauge, and I went to the bolt just closing on the headspace gauge, almost even just a slight crush, right? So basically 0 headspace. Mm-hmm. Now the reamer itself, the way the reamer is, so you're saying the shoulder, if it's 0 headspace, the bolt will just close on the gauge. Can the shoulder blow forward at all? Is there any room in there?
It depends on the brass for what you're doing.
Okay.
Okay, because of the instructions you give, we're figuring out where this stuff is.
Yes.
Right, and making the gauge accordingly. So, for example, if you look at this, we made that shoulder angle slightly different than the standard 300 Norma Mag shoulder angle
To match the brass, the Lapua brass.
to what we matched that brass to.
Yes.
Now,
And wait, because this is very important, and that's why I use them. Because see, I'm not a math guy. I cannot calculate all this stuff out, and so that's why I appreciate these guys so much. Because the reamer is critical to getting really small groups, assuming you have a great barrel. And what they send me back just works like really good. And what he just told me, see, I'm not even aware of what he just told me. So
we do a lot of magic.
yeah. So the thing is, you're saying that this gauge then, because I always say match the headspace. If I even get a headspace gauge, I say match the gauge to the brass. And what you're essentially saying is this piece of brass, if it's the average piece of brass, matches that.
It might. It depends on what we're doing. So this gauge, if you can see it through, we marked it 300 Norma Mag Q.M.M. So the reason for that is that this is not a standard 300 Norma Mag gauge, right? Now, that for you, that works because you're loading up 100 rounds or 50 rounds and sending it with a rifle, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. Okay,
Right.
I'm sorry, I'm very deaf. So yes, each gun we build, I generally load 50 and or 100 to take it out and shoot it, right?
For the average shooter though, for the average guy, he might be shooting some mix of factory ammo, some mix of his own hand loads. He might be buying Hornady brass and Remington brass and Norma brass. He wouldn't want to do what you're doing.
In other words, too narrow. I'm too narrow right there.
You're very specific to this lot of brass.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with that. You just have to know that.
Right.
Right? Whereas unless you want to be locked in to that box of brass that you bought,
Yes.
and you know you're never going to need anything else,
Just for a
then
second.
you're okay.
Right. And so that's one of the reasons, so the customers understand this. Many times I say to a customer, say he wants to build a 300 Norma. I will say, give me 300, 400, 500 pieces of Lapua brass from the exact same lot number. And that's the stipulation to build the gun. And so he's going to be using that exact brass for the life of that barrel.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So yes, keep going because this is really good. I would have forgot about this stuff.
Yeah. So because of that, because you're doing like 4 steps more.
Yes.
And being very specific about what's being loaded, you're never going to have a problem that we've made this chamber kind of a one-off chamber.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Whereas if I wanted to build a 300 Norma Mag, and I didn't have 500 pieces of Norma Mag brass, and I didn't know if I was going to shoot federal ammo or, any number of different things, right? I would want to hew a lot closer to the standard chamber.
To be clear,
and especially
to standard SAMI specs is what he's saying.
Standard, right?
In other words, factory ammo.
And so that would be primarily in the body, shoulder, and neck, the chamber body itself, where the brass lays. Okay. Now I might tailor it if I thought, well, I'm not going to shoot the heavy bullets in my 300 Norma Mag for whatever reason. Maybe I want to only shoot, a Sierra 150 in it. I might only have 0 freebore.
Yes.
Right. And
But you probably would with 150s.
Yeah, you wouldn't need it.
Right. So let's wait. I know it's so much information, it's getting complicated. So let's explain that just for a second. So you see it on this print. This is a 0.242 freebore, which is pretty much space. But what you have to understand is it's because of these great big bullets. You understand? And so if the bullet is a smaller, shorter bullet, as a general statement, there's going to be much less freebore.
Generally speaking, yes. Or the bullet's just going to be jumping a long ways, A. Or B, I'm seating the bullet way, way, way forward in the neck.
Right.
So
In other words, you have very little bullet in the neck.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
And so and that's one of the things I always tell them, and that's why I appreciate it. This may be the thing I appreciate about Manson the best. When I make up my dummy rounds, one of the things I always say in our letter is, please set up my free bore so that the bullet is just touching the lands. And normally when I get the reamer back and I do the barrel and then I go ahead and soft seat a bullet, you guys are normally, a really bad one will be 15 thousandths off, longer or shorter. A really good one will be within 1 or 2 or 3 thousandths. So my soft seat jam measurements are almost exactly what we requested. And see, that's really a big deal, because it's not that big a deal if it's a 5 thousandths, 10 thousandths, 15 thousandths. Say you get to 30 thousandths difference. Well, that is either pushing the bullet below that neck shoulder junction, or it's pulling the bullet further out of the case, which, like this does not have a really long neck in it. If it's a 30-06, 30 thousandths is not that big a deal. But some cartridges have relatively, 300 Winchester, has relatively short necks.
Sure.
So when I request a bullet to be seated in the case at a specific point, to me, it's very important. It's very, very important. And the fact that they get it almost dead on almost every time, I really appreciate that.
There's a lot that goes into that. It has a lot to do with the relationship of that lead angle to the bullet and the different ogive curvatures of those bullets.
Yes.
And there is no, there's a little bit of black magic when you're trying to calculate that out.
So do you put that on, has these dummy rounds actually been on an optical comparator? Is that how you do it, to figure out where that line is?
Not usually, no.
No, you do it with math? Or you do it by eye?
No, we've got specialized datum blocks, and sometimes I will use the optical comparator, but I'm taking a measurement. Let me pull this out of here. Typically, 90% of the time, I'm going to take a measurement just over the, okay, so on this bullet, you can probably, maybe in the light, you can see the bearing surface ends right about here.
When it comes up to full diameter.
Right, this bullet right here is 308 diameter.
Yes.
All the way out to about right there, and then of course it's in the neck as well. Then the ogive curvature starts, and this curvature that we're worried about is the curvature that's going to interact with the lands inside of the rifle. Right. Those lands are 3.5 to 4 thou tall. So we're talking about a zone on the bullet from this major diameter of 308 down to 304.
A narrow range.
A very narrow range. Yes. Like where I'm holding a pencil, it's probably more like 300. So there's just a very narrow range where the bullet is going to interact with the lands, and that's where we're measuring from.
Yes.
Right. And because the curvature in this area is very slight, and we're dealing with a 1.5 degree angle, it's really
critical.
It is, yeah, there's a fair amount of experience that goes into trying to do that, work out where that's actually going to be.
Yes.
Where this is going to meet that where you want it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, and so getting it right is very important, especially, so say they got a little wrong and the bullet's further out. Well, that's absolutely fine for my accuracy end of it, because almost all, and I hope you'll agree with this, he's a competitive shooter, by the way. When you push the full diameter of the bullet below that neck shoulder junction, just as a really general statement, you gave up accuracy. I totally believe that in every way, shape, or form, that you want the full diameter of the bullet ahead of that neck shoulder junction, and actually ahead of it maybe like 10, 15 thou, right? Because you're trying to avoid what the short range guys call the dreaded donut,
Yes.
right? That's the whole deal. And that is another reason why when you're turning necks, that you turn up into the shoulder. I always turn a little ways into the shoulder.
Correct.
But if they got it wrong, that the bullet is out a hair further, it's no big deal, as long as you have enough neck to hold the bullet properly. But if they push it deeper, I become greatly concerned. Whether I can prove it or not, it's just because mentally I know that probably you gave up some accuracy, right? So it's a big deal, because for every new, especially, this is really, we have different perspectives here probably. When I get a new reamer, I have anxiety. I really do. Because yes, I can look at the print and everything, and I can see, I mean, you should show them this, Vicki. So the print, he was just asking about this. This is the cartridge overall length with the average bullet, this average 245 grain Berger EOL, and this is my comparator number, which is the only way I have, that transition zone he was telling you about, that's the only way I have of finding that on my calipers, right? So I get all these perfect dummies all lined up. I send it to Ray. Ray sends me a new reamer. If it's brand new with a cartridge I've never done, I have anxiety, because, you know, it's a $500–600 barrel in the lathe. And first of all, I don't know if it's going to grab. I don't know how it's going to cut. There's many things I don't know, right? Because it's new to me. So I go ahead, I cut the chamber, say everything goes great, which it normally does. Don't let us forget to talk about the patch method. He helped me. That's one of the reasons why Ray is here. So I'll go ahead and chamber it. Then I still have anxiety when I take the finished gun into the reloading room, because I have to do my soft seat jams. I want to see where the bullet actually, and this is definitely controversial. A lot of guys are going to poo-poo this. I want to see those marks in the exact spot they should be, and I want them to be uniform in width and uniform in length. And I want each one, I'm going to say it's a 4 group. I want one exactly at 12, exactly at 9, exactly at 6, exactly at 3, or if it's a 5, whatever. I want everything to look super symmetrical. And I know everybody's going to throw a fit, but I swear by this. If those marks look exactly perfect on that bullet, I can almost predict with 99% certainty that gun's going to hammer. Ones that I have saw that it is not, like there's a distortion, usually they might be a 1/2 inch gun. It'll never be a 1/4 inch gun. And again, this is just my seat of the pants observation. When the marks don't look right, the gun doesn't shoot right. When the marks look perfect, usually it shoots perfect. And whether that's in the barrel, you know what I mean, like the actual where the lands are, whether it's in the, what, I don't know what it's in, but I'm just giving you a piece of information. But the idea that they get their freebore right so often, to me, is critical. Now, one thing, and you can explain this, just tell them, with a Sammy spec reamer, you get what you get.